Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of suicide, mental health, and so on. Our goal is to share real-life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well-being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion. Welcome, listeners. I have a very special guest on today, my good friend, Kasey Baynton, an adventurer whose life took a dramatic turn after being bitten by a tick in 2019. What started as a health crisis transformed into a remarkable journey of healing and self-discovery. Formerly a marathon runner and snowboarding instructor, Kasey faced the sudden loss of motor control and autonomic functioning. Despite the challenges, she embraced her new path with courage and determination. Over the past 4 years, Kasey has immersed herself in various healing modalities, including biodynamic craniosacral therapy and Reiki level 3 master healing. She left her career as an archaeologist to explore alternative paths of providing for herself. Her recent Lyme disease treatments have included unconventional methods like hypothermia and bee venom therapy. Through it all, Kasey has learned to deeply listen to her body, mind, and soul, understanding that healing is a uniquely individual journey. Let's talk further, Kasey. Why don't you start from the beginning and tell me more about maybe when you first realized you were struggling with Lyme disease, or maybe what your first symptoms were and how it all began?
Yeah. As you know, Lyme is one of those hard diseases that you don't quite know you have it. Like, it can stay dormant in someone's system for a while. And then often it will be like, if you have some sort of emotional trigger or something big happen in your life, that's when it will usually like rise to the surface. So yeah, I got bit in 2019. I always kind of had an idea of the archaeological site that I got bit on. It was in St. Catharines and it was near a garbage dump. So I always joke that the limes or the ticks there were extra toxic.
Oh gosh. So you were at work then when you got bit?
Yeah, they were super aggressive on that site. Like, we were in Marshfield, but they would come out from the bushes like into our stuff. And if you wanted to go to the porta potty, they would be like hanging in the porta potty waiting for you. Like,
Oh my gosh.
but yeah, I honestly didn't know. Like, I got bit by 2 ticks in 2019, and I was one of those people who are like, oh yeah, like, it's okay, like, I'll never get Lyme disease, right? Like,
Oh man. Yeah, of course. Because why would that be your first thought?
yeah, exactly. It was just kind of those chill people of like, it's all good, it'll be good, not thinking about it. And then yeah, that winter I went back to Whistler, and some of the first signs were my anxiety started going through the roof. So I remember, like, Whistler's a very busy, chaotic place, right? Lots of people. And I'd taught there for 3 seasons already. And I remember some mornings my anxiety being so high, I couldn't even make it into work, or I'd make it to the parking lot and have to like call in sick. And then I thought I was just being like too stressed. So I was training for like marathons at the same time. And I was like, maybe I'm not getting enough electrolytes and I'm just pushing myself too hard.
Sure.
Taking a group of students up a chairlift, and my hands started like pill rolling in a weird way. And I was like, okay, this is odd. But like, I just kept, it was inside my glove. And I was like, I kept on like teaching the rest of the day. And then all of a sudden my like eyes started like blinking in weird ways. And I was like, oh, okay, again, maybe I'm just like not hydrating myself enough.
Sure.
Um, yeah. And that was like the year that COVID started to hit as well. So there was like that amped up energy.
Oh, good old COVID, right? Yeah, for sure.
Wasn't until the spring and summer that stuff really started to become clear to me. So I I started losing emotional control. I remember being back doing archaeology in Ontario the following spring, and I'd be driving to work and I'd be like crying uncontrollably for no reason.
Oh,
And
goodness.
the way back, my teeth would be like burning with this like nerve pain. And
Oh my
get,
gosh.
yeah, and then I would have a shower and my knees would lock up.
Oh,
And
wow. That's terrifying.
yeah, so that it's really slow to like progress. And then what really kind of clued me in that it was something beyond just being tired and fatigued and pushing myself and not like resourcing myself well enough was it was the night before my grandpa had died, so like kind of an emotional trigger.
I'm
And
sorry.
yeah, that's all right. And I'd started to get like really thirsty and like Pika sort of symptoms. I wanted to like chew on sticks and always drink water and like suck on ice cubes. And then
Okay.
all broke in my brain. And the night before my grandpa's funeral, my hand started twitching and I couldn't stop it unless I was consciously present. So anytime I was like watching a movie or relaxing, my autonomic nervous system was just like in control, my hand would twitch or circle, and then I was starting to gasp for breaths and get snarling in my face. And
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, and it was all in the background. So anytime I was engaged talking to someone, I looked okay. I felt okay. But anytime I relaxed and yeah, my body was just like freaking
So how long was this after you got bit by the tick, do you think then?
whole year, a year and a bit.
Okay, so
And
for that entire first year, you were just having random weird symptoms and not, and then making excuses for other reasons for why it could be. And okay,
tired, I'm emotionally stressed, I'm yeah, like maybe I'm not eating properly, stuff like that. Until yeah, I started to get the tremors and the shakes and the convulsions and I couldn't regulate my breathing and stuff. I was like, oh, okay, something is seriously wrong here. So
yeah.
that's when doctor or I only had a nurse practitioner because I couldn't get a doctor. And the first thing she did to me was send me a bipolar to
A
see if
survey, a bipolar survey?
there to see if I was bipolar.
Oh, shoot. Had you ever had any possible bipolar symptoms in the past?
Has their ups and downs and stuff, right? But yeah, never to those extremes, right? And I answered the questionnaire and she's like, oh, okay, you don't seem to be bipolar. And I was like, no, there's something like I just feel really odd in my body. Like I felt really weird. Yeah, so that was interesting with her. And she got me to do the Canadian Lyme test, but because it had been a year and a bit, of course it came back negative.
So what is a Lyme test? Also, side note for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, I didn't put in Kasey's bio that she's in Canada. So healthcare system stuff might be slightly different over there. But what is a Lyme disease test? What do they do for that?
I don't know actually what they teach or test for in Canada. I know they take like it's a blood test, right?
Okay.
And then for markers and each certain Lyme tests are different. I think the one in the US is different from what the Canadian one tests for and what
Mhm.
the German tests for. So I'd have to go back. It used to be in my head and now I've forgotten what they specifically test for.
But they did a
Um,
blood draw on you, and then that's what they were just looking for it in your blood then.
and it came back negative and the Canadian one is known for being terrible.
Oh, shoot.
So then I kind of still had an idea in my head that it was Lyme, just
Had
because
you
all the
started doing your own research then on it at that point?
started like, and you just kind of have a gut feeling sometimes, you know what I mean? So I called up like a Lyme helpline in Ontario, and he told me of this naturopath. And I went to her, and I ended up having to pay $800 to get tested
Oh,
in
wow.
the States. So I sent my blood to the States, and their test is better. And that one was called IGenics, the
I feel like
IGenics.
I've heard of that company.
And then that one came back as positive. So that's when I started um pursuing healing from Lyme disease, I guess. But
So what was the time frame then between the two tests? Like, or like from when you went to the doctor and then you got all the testing done? Because that stuff's never fast.
the Canadian one was in the spring or the summer. It was in the summer. And then the American one I did late fall. And that one actually didn't come back it didn't take too long. So it was all right. Yeah.
That's good.
But then the funny thing was that then I took my like American positive Lyme test to my nurse practitioner, and she made me cry coming out of
Oh
it because
no.
I took it to her to get like antibiotics, right? And then she just claimed it was a false positive and that they didn't have to treat based on an American test. So she refused to give me antibiotics. So I had to go to a walk-in clinic and trick a walk-in doctor there to give me like 2 weeks of doxycycline, which did
What?
better. Yeah, and then I had to book an appointment with a private doctor and pay like $100, and she finally wrote me a prescription for doxycycline and low dose naltrexone, I think.
I'm familiar with both of those from my
Yeah,
fertility journey. So yeah.
so that got the ball rolling, and then by that time I was ready to move back out west for like the snowboard season. And then that's when I took the deep dive into naturopathy and like all the natural healing practices, and pretty much left the Western medical system like behind me. So
Yeah, sure. So you did the doxycycline and the low dose naltrexone for just a couple weeks then, or was that something they wanted you to be on like long term? And then is that standard meds for Lyme disease?
yeah, like you usually do antibiotics in the beginning to kind of kick the bugs out, but they can go into hiding and stuff in your system, like really deep intracellular. So the antibiotics are the first sort of wave to kind of get, the ones that are very active in your system. But then that's why you have to turn to UV light therapy or like all the infrared light therapies or all the biomeridian testing and all that stuff later on to go to the intracellular levels to get kind of hiding out that could come back. Yeah, so I was on doxycycline for 3 months, I guess.
An antibiotic for 3 months?
Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it hurt a lot. I remember my temples just like pounding.
Oh
Um,
man, that's a long time to be on an antibiotic.
ruins your gut, right? I think I've spent most of my healing work trying to repair my gut microbiome.
Were you
Um,
on a pretty solid what are they? Probiotic?
Yeah, they put me on my first naturopath, who was in Burlington, Ontario, put me on one. And then my second naturopath, he put me on one, and I've been on and off. Yeah, just different one.
Did
Yeah.
you have any like side effects? So for my fertility stuff, they put me on at one point they put me on like 4 or 5 antibiotics, but it was only for like, yeah, it was only for like a month, I think. But I ended up with thrush, which is like a yeast infection in your mouth from it, even though one of the antibiotic or one of the meds they had me on was also an antifungal. So it was supposed to prevent that, but did nothing for that. It was awful. So did you have anything like that come up while you were on those for 3 months?
Actually, well, not when the antibiotics, but before I got diagnosed with Lyme, I remember going to a dentist and I had, yeah, the thrush on my tongue. And the things that clued me in that something was in my system causing imbalance. And I remember getting the tongue scrapers and like trying to.
I did all the things. It was awful.
I think throughout the whole time, then when I started intuitively healing, then I started really knowing when to put oregano on my feet, on the
Okay.
soles of my naturopath would get me to do that if I had a bunch of yeast or fungal, because he was constantly checking in for that. So I'd put oregano on my feet for 5 nights in a row, maybe take some oregano orally or candida stopper, something like that. Yeah, so I started to be able to, yeah, gauge it, I guess. But
And then, so then the low dose naltrexone, is that, because I know some people are on that for forever. So is that something they wanted to keep you on?
no, because I pretty much saw that private doctor once just so I could get some antibiotics. And then I switched over to my naturopath in Salmon Arm, and he's been my rock solid healer
Okay.
since. I just started checking in with him, and he didn't feel like the low dose naltrexone was necessary, right? I started eventually, this is where I love natural forms of healing because most people don't want to stay on medications long term. So you learn how to resource yourself naturally.
For sure.
Yeah, to kind of, because low dose naltrexone's a bit more mood related, right?
Yeah, and is it anti-inflammatory or is it an immune suppressant as well? I think it's maybe both. Yeah.
Kind of does a bunch of things, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So tell me when you first, okay, so you got the positive test. And then obviously you said you cried when you went to the doctor and they were mean to you. Just terrible. But what were you feeling at that point when you got the diagnosis? I can imagine a little bit maybe of relief that you have some answers, but also what was going through your head at that point?
yeah, I think it was a bit of a relief because it's a hard thing with healing because they say sometimes naming it can sometimes make it worse. But
Oh,
for me, kind of knowing what I was facing kind of helped me come up with a game plan a bit more.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and to be a little bit more like, oh, this is just something that's in my system that's really aggressively attacking my nervous system, and if we can just work to rid my system of these bugs, and then work to calm my nervous system, maybe I can get back to some semblance of normal. You're never as you were
Yeah,
prior.
so I mean that had to be pretty traumatic in the moment, I would think, to think, how is this going to change my life? I don't know. Were you questioning if you were going to be able to still do all the things that you normally were doing? Or, yeah.
Because I went back to Whistler and I used to snowboard all day, every day, teaching snowboard with ease, right? And then I remember snowboarding with my friend Andy, and I couldn't make it from slow sign to slow sign without being in excruciating pain.
Oh,
So
wow.
I would go to the next slow sign, have to sit down. I was doubled over. My feet were cramping. My chest was cramping, just so much joint pain. And yeah, obviously the thoughts of how am I going to just function? Like, I was like, how am I going to function in the same style of life that I'm used to, right?
And how old are you, Kasey?
39.
Okay. So how old were you? So you were only, I mean, you're 30, you were like what, 36 or something when you?
Yeah, so 30, it's been 4 years now. We do the math, 35. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you're like still very young and able to do a lot of things. And to then have something come up like that, that all of a sudden could stop your normal everyday life too, or the things you love to do. I mean, that would upset me. So I can imagine how that felt.
Yeah, the hardest things were one, Lyme really messed with my bladder, a lot of anxiety because you're just flushing stuff from your system. So that was one, like, how can I do these activities when I'm constantly having to run to the bathroom every 30 minutes? A hard thing was brain fog. I went from reading books to not being able to read a paragraph or a page without things like swimming or me needing to fall asleep. I couldn't read anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, there was so much like intense brain fog. Even when someone was speaking at me, their words would get jumbled in my head and I would stare blankly at them. I just couldn't connect.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and then my energy levels just took a nosedive. I was taking 4 naps a day. It would take me 30 minutes to an hour to fall asleep, and I'd be up 4 times a night going to the washroom.
Gosh.
And then, yeah, and then the thing was Lyme. I don't know if people say this, but Lyme makes you one very dark. I was having intense dreams of demons and darkness, and just you can't connect with anything. Everything feels like dust, and like, yeah, just really, your life goes really dark, and you get Lyme rage, which feels like this really intense anger that's
Oh, wow.
deeper than you. Like it feels like it's beyond you. And I remember going for one walk, and my face was just, I couldn't help it. It was hissing and snarling. And it was late at night, and a lady was passing me, and I'm like, I hope she's not looking my way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Lyme is, it's intense.
So, I mean, did the dark dreams and things like that, did you ever feel like you were going through any type of depression or, I don't know, scary thoughts in that regard? Or was it mostly,
Yeah, I think when you have Lyme, it's not uncommon to start contemplating suicide.
oh, wow.
It literally feels like you're being tortured in the pits of hell within your own body.
Oh,
Like every
wow.
day is pure torture. Your nerves are on fire. Your joints are just stiff and achy. Your whole system is tense, and you can't relax, and you just can't get enjoyment out of anything that you used to, right?
Oh,
Um
man. So that has to cause, I mean, was that part of your healing process, which I want to get into here soon, but was dealing with depression and I don't know if you went as far as suicidal thoughts or was that, had you started healing before you got to that point? Tell me about that.
I feel like I entertained a lot of suicidal thoughts, but never got to the point of acting on it. Because I always had, like I said, with the game plan, what I started to do was made sure there was something on the horizon that, like just a healing appointment or something that I could check in with. So even if it was just I set up an acupuncture appointment for myself, that was something that was like, okay, it's the next step. Or even if it was just, that's what I was saying. One of the things I learned really, really important to do in a healing journey is to constantly check in with yourself. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, really ask your mind, body, and soul, hey, what do you need from me today to just feel even a tiny bit better today? Even if it was just, oh, I need to call my sister, that
Oh, I
will
love that. Yeah.
go hang out with them, or I need to stretch today, or I need to eat an orange for some reason. Uh, I had weeks like that where all my body was just like, I need cinnamon. I need cinnamon. I
Oh, how random.
okay, I don't know why, but I'll just trust it. And the more I trusted these weird things that were just showing up, yeah, the better I got. So yeah, when I was in those really dark moments, it was a little bit like you had to really celebrate the small wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So if I managed to somehow read 2 pages in a book, that was a big win. And you had to make about it. You're just like, oh my gosh, I read 2 pages. We're making some progress.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So yeah, stuff like that. Even, yeah, some people say if you manage to get out of bed and get dressed, like almost throw a birthday party for two.
I see those memes on Instagram all the time and I send them to my sister all the time. I'm like, okay, the best I could do today was get my butt out of bed.
Right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
When did you quit your job? Was that before you started your natural healing process or after?
oh no, that was recently.
Okay.
Throughout Lyme, I had to dig. I dug so many holes to pay for my treatment.
Which is so interesting to me too, because, you know, we as Americans always look at everywhere else and your guys' universal health care or whatever that's provided. But yeah, I mean, here it's the same thing. If you want to go to a naturopath, you're going to pay a small fortune because insurance won't cover any of it. It is interesting. I think we just think you guys all have free health care. So you were having to work to pay for and dig holes because you were an archaeologist to pay for your treatment, which was hella
Yeah.
expensive, I'm assuming, because none of that, I know that here none of that stuff's cheap.
I joke that now I have like a wealth of health, right? But my actual wealth is not very healthy.
We all have to find that balance at some point, right? Like everybody wants to live a healthy, happy, wonderful life, but also money makes the world go round. So we kind of have to have some of that too.
Well, yeah, I knew I was in it for the long haul when I started really meditating and sitting with my system. I knew it was going to be at least a 5-year journey. I knew Lyme's always expensive to treat. So yeah, I've been one of the lucky ones. I think it's cost me about 50,000 in terms of travel and everything and more, which is not so bad. I have 4 naturopaths now that I see for different stuff.
Based on where you are in the moment.
Yeah, just what treatment's coming up. But one of my naturopaths says it's not uncommon he's had people in front of him that have spent millions of dollars trying to get better. I'm actually really grateful for my intuitive process because I think that really helped.
Yeah. Okay. So start with that. So you saw your first naturopath, and then what was the conversation like? And then where was your head at emotionally to pursue the more natural routes? And had you done research on that stuff before on how that could help?
It was pretty much my naturopath in Burlington. She recommended this guy in Salmon Arm. So I drove across the country by myself again.
Yeah. So
Um,
where is Burlington?
in Ontario. So I was
Okay. And then where is it Salmon Arm? Is that what you said?
so it's kind of in the Okanagan. Yeah, I drove across the country by myself again. At that point, I was taking a lot of hemp-based CBD just to calm my nervous system down. So I pretty much drove across the country and I napped. I napped so much across the country.
How long did it take you?
5 or 7 days in December.
And
Luckily,
how
the
long should it have taken?
normally that
Okay.
if someone else, you can pull longer days. But because I was sick, I only drove from 8 in the morning till 4, till it got dark or whatever, and then pretty much slept along the way, and then just had CBD to um keep my nervous system down. But I don't do CBD anymore unless I really feel the call for it. But back then, it was one of the only things I had. So yeah, then I drove to Salmon Arm and saw him, and he got me out on homeopathics and biophoton sort of light treatment. There's like this box that I could take home and shine around me and stuff, and
Nice.
yeah, that was really great. And then I kept checking in with him all winter, and I tried. That was the winter that Whistler was pretty bad with COVID and stuff, so there weren't very many classes. I didn't really teach. I was just on EI because I worked really hard that summer, even being sick. And then, yeah, that following summer, I went and did archaeology in the Okanagan here in Kelowna and stuff. And that's where I really worked hard while being sick. I remember just constantly being in pain, but I was like, okay,
Oh,
one more test pit will give you this much treatment. So just keep digging.
oh man, that's hard labor for somebody who's having physical pain.
I resourced myself a lot at night. I meditated a lot. I would do like intuitive dance or movement therapy. I started doing qigong. That's when I started doing biodynamic craniosacral therapy because um my naturopath had recommended manual osteopathy for me, and I was doing some of that, and I was in Penticton doing work, and I showed up at this lady because I thought I'd booked a manual osteopathy appointment, and she's like, I do craniosacral therapy. Would you be okay with that? And I'm like, well, I'm here. and, and it was like, I just worked a long day, like digging holes, and that was incredible. That first session, the way it calmed my nervous system was unbelievable. She said when she touched her hands to my feet, she said it felt like she was putting her hands into a wall socket. that's how like charged up my nervous system
Oh,
was.
wow.
Yeah. So I kept going back to her when I was in Penticton, and that really helped me start to listen to my body and really deeply ask what it needed and the individual parts of my body, and really helped my nervous system calm down. So I wasn't fighting myself anymore. So I could start enjoying things again and, relaxing and connecting with people and stuff. Yeah.
So when you started really feeling the effects of the treatment you were doing, starting to make things better, what was going through your head? How are you feeling at that point?
A little um, there's always this undertone of Lyme where you feel a little crazy.
Okay. Because of the way it's affecting your emotions?
Yeah, I think Lyme from the get-go has that energetics of like, because people aren't believing you from the beginning, that you really doubt yourself. You have a lot of self-doubt. Am I making this up? Am I making this up in my head? Is this real? Do I really have Lyme in my system? And then you go to a session or a treatment and you'd be like, oh yeah, they're feeling it too. Or they know what they're talking about. You're like, okay, I'm not making this up. But when you're doing this intuitive healing, and all of a sudden you're in front of your naturopath and he's telling you to go hug trees because trees love our shit. So give them all your shit. Then you're out in a park for an hour hugging trees. And you're just trusting it, and you're asking the trees to take all your shit, and you come away from it feeling way better and energized, but there's a part of you being like am
Dude,
I
I feel that. I love trees. I mean, I've never gone out to the park to actually just hug a tree, but when I'm hiking and stuff, I'm always touching the trees. I want to feel we have a lot of pine trees here. So I always want to touch all the needles and feel all the different textures. And I'll walk past a aspen tree that I put my hand up against to step down on something. I'm like, thanks, tree. It seriously is an energetic thing for sure.
and now I'm a little bit more respectful. So now I'll specifically ask the tree of being like, hey, because some trees I do get the energetics back that they're like, okay, I have enough of my own stuff. I don't want to be touched. So now I'm a little bit more respectful and be like, hey, tree, hey, if I give you a hug, can you take some of my shit? And some of them were like, yeah. And some of them were like, whoa, I have enough. um,
That's good. I should probably pay better attention to my trees when I'm touching them.
but like trees are very giving in general, and I think there definitely is a thing to nature bathing, right?
Yeah, for
um
sure. If anything, it gets you like a meditation state, I think, kind of like you're just, especially if you go by yourself. I find when I go with Colin, I end up talking to him a lot. But if I go for a walk by myself, it's just so healing and you just look around and so quiet and really enjoyable.
really easier to sink in. And I have to remind myself, yeah, I agree with you. When you get with people or you get busy in the doing, or to just take that moment to pause and slow things down. And I've said that with a lot of people I've worked with, is because I'm apparently a very air energy or whatever. Things come at me like fast and hard and messages. And a lot of people are like, don't be afraid to ground yourself, take a moment to pause, ask things to come at you a bit slower.
Are
Ask
you
for,
an air sign? Are you an air astrological sign?
yeah, or just that Reiki energy of kind of air. So that can be an antenna, but sometimes the antenna gets too much information.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so there was throughout my whole Lyme journey, it's especially when I dived into the Reiki and the craniosacral, there was this really fine balance of making sure I was grounded, not going too energetically high, and also that mentally checking in of that. Yeah, because I always had that self-doubt of like, am I crazy? And sometimes when I was with people, I'd be like, did you feel that or see that too? I'd check in with others. And
Were
yeah.
were people usually in tune with that too, or not usually?
Yeah, well, there's, as you know, there's all different sorts of people on this planet, and some are more energetically uh in tune, and some are just way more grounded, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And some are more open to it, and some are not, given, yeah, how you're raised and stuff. And my biodynamic craniosacral course was a good place because there was a lot of like-minded people and some people in that class that had Lyme as well, so we could check in with each other.
Oh yeah, that had to be really nice to have some other people to lean on.
I have one really crazy story that I love to recount. And I don't know, do you know much about craniosacral therapy? You've had it before, right?
I believe I have, yeah, but go ahead and enlighten others about, what is it exactly?
It's a lot about it's gentle touch, and it's just like gentle handholds. As a practitioner, you just learn to create a gentle, safe, neutral space to hold that space so that someone can come in and feel supported and nurtured, almost like a womb space, and they can just kind of unravel a bit. They can let go of things that they've been holding on to that need to be released. And it can be very like physical based. It can be like, oh, I hear, I can feel your blood circulating very strongly around your body. And oh, you have a bit of tension in your calf muscle. Do you feel that? And I feel like it wants to stretch out. But it can also be very emotional, like the emotional level of, oh, are you holding a bit of sadness in your chest? Like, are you ready to sort of, release that? And it can go spiritual. So the one I had was a bit spiritual in class. So my brother, as you know, is married to a lovely Japanese woman.
She is lovely.
And she'd just been to Japan and she knew I was getting into some of the energetic work. And she brought me back this salt from a Shinto shrine, just this like, yeah, blessed salt. And she gave it to me right before one of my seminars, like my craniosacral seminars, like classes. And as soon as I received it, it just felt super comforting, right? I loved it. So I decided to bring it to class, right? And I didn't tell anyone I had it on me in class. I just had it in my pocket or in my backpack. We were doing table work, and what is it? I worked on this girl named Madhavi first, and she's a lovely soul, right? And it was good. I don't know, she released a lot and we discussed stuff afterwards. And then we swapped. So I was on the table and she was working on me. And I had the salt in my pocket and she didn't know about it. And she worked on me and it was a really good session. And I released a lot and relaxed. I don't know what I released. And then this is where I said, like, you're constantly checking in with the energetic world. Like, am I crazy? I don't know. She
Yeah.
leaned, like, I don't know if you're open to hearing this, but I just wanted to say the whole time I was working on you, in my mind's eye, there was a Japanese samurai standing over you and protecting you the whole time. And she's like, I don't know how to explain it or why. That's just what I saw. So I just trusted it. And he was there the whole time. And I was like, I pulled the salt out of my pocket. I was like this. It was really weird because it was like she somehow saw the energetics that this physical object in my pocket was projecting into the space. And I've come to learn and sort of believe that all objects kind of have a spirit or an energy. And that was just really cool. That
Yeah, that's really cool that she picked up on that. That's a totally unique experience for sure.
so we had in a bunch of my healing practices, Reiki and stuff, we had many weird things that would happen like that. And afterwards, I'd come out and be like, I need to go play some basketball and I need to ground.
Just get some energy out or
God, what did I just experience? But yeah, stuff like that, those little awe moments really do help. And connecting with others in that magical way really do help in like in a healing journey, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of why I've started this podcast too, because I don't know, there's been so many times in my journey that I felt so isolated and so alone. And I know intellectually that that's not true because I know there's so many people that also struggle with infertility. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are struggling with Lyme disease. But until you have those people in your inner circle or you talk to somebody that fully understands what you're going through, it just feels so isolating and alone. So did you feel like that a lot in the beginning of when you first got your diagnosis?
Yeah, it wasn't until this craniosacral class when I had the people showing up in front of me who also had Lyme disease, and I could see the brain fog on their face, or they would tell me that they're experiencing a lot of nerve pain today. I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, it is like, I don't know. It is just that like relief. Because
Mm-hmm.
encountering people who are kind of, it feels like, yeah, it's hard because you know those people who are around you love you and support you, and but there is that sense that they just don't totally get it, which is kind of hard. So yeah, when
Yeah.
you have who comes in who has felt it in their own body, and you know they've felt it as deep as you have, there's this huge relief of not being alone.
Yeah. And probably thinking, oh, it's not just me and I'm not the crazy one and I'm not making this all up in my head.
Because it is hard, because I do kind of believe that um with some of my practices that the thoughts you manifest in your head can eventually manifest physically. So you have to be very mindful of your thinking. So a part of me with Lyme disease really questions of, did I manifest it into my life with my thoughts for a reason? You know what I mean? And taking ownership of that, of because you get that question all the time of, if you could go back, would you do this all over again? Would you wish it upon yourself? And that's a really hard question.
That's so hard because I mean, I can see for my own experiences, that is who it that those experiences have made me who I am now. And I've learned so much about myself and my body. And, as I'm sure you have as well, that, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through that all over again for sure. But, but at the
Yeah, you love the wisdom that's come out of it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's the good stuff that has come out of it. That is, sometimes looking at the silver lining, but that can be hard too. I've been in very, very, very dark places before too, where I've completely blamed myself and my body, and I brought this upon myself. And what did I do in a past life, or what did I do early in my life to deserve this?
Exactly. Even one question that kept coming up in my head, even in the darkest moments. And you talked about depression. I almost forgot, like the first year of Lyme, I had so much to clean out of my system. I pretty much cried every day for a year straight. I totally forgot about that. And a lot of it was emotional, but I think a lot of it was like physically just needed to
Release.
release. But yeah, a question that always kept popping up into my head was like, was I really that bored? And that was like,
Bored?
yeah, was I really that bored?
Like with life, and that's why the Lyme disease came on, or like elaborate on that a little bit more.
Still questioning that. It's a recurring question, and I was like, because I'm now doing a lot of like deep diving into subconscious thinking and blocks, and I'm like, yeah, was I really that bored that my subconscious thinking somehow manifested this horrible disease into my life to make it, to give me a challenge, and make it more interesting, and to learn more about myself and resource. A part of me would love to be like, I hope you really but I never know. I still haven't figured that one out. But that is the reason why I have quit archaeology, is because I was getting bored in that profession. And I think I was actually meant to leave it earlier and didn't have the courage to do it. So part of me thinks maybe I don't know for sure, but if it was the manifestation, did I manifest the disease to finally push me out of that? I don't.
Mm.
Very like, I'm in definitely that scary leap of faith zone right now of not sure what I'm going to do moving forward, how I'm going to pay for stuff, but I'm being told just to keep trusting.
I mean,
And
that's huge. I've been told that a lot in the past few years too. Trust the process, trust the journey. But that makes me so mad sometimes too, because I'm like, why does it have to be so difficult? It's so easier to trust when things are going well.
And I actually, it's funny because like this spring, it's normally the time to go back to archaeology. And I kept doing that. Should I go back? Should I not? It's good money. I should go back. And I kept getting intense visions of me dying or death, or just always like messages of dead end, dead end. But I kept like questioning it. And then the funniest thing happened was that I was driving in Kelowna near our office. And again, in my head was like, oh, should I reach out to my boss? Maybe I should go back. And as I was questioning that, I literally took a right hand turn and hit a dead end from construction.
Oh, wow.
I had to do the most awkward reversing and like turning around. And I was just like, okay.
Universe has spoken.
They're like, she wasn't getting it all these other times. We have to make it a physical sign. And that made me laugh really.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Stuff like that shows up in my life. If I'm not listening and being stubborn, I do believe like I have strong guides, or I've been guiding, whether it's my subconscious or other energetics or source, or if I'm not listening, it will show up very strongly.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny.
So how long have you been then practicing the craniosacral and Reiki and stuff yourself?
Craniosacral is now 3 years now. Yeah, because the course was like 2 years. And yeah, I started craniosacral in my first year of healing from Lyme with that girl in Penticton. And then it was funny because while I was with her, my one naturopath was telling me to get ozone shots in my mouth to clear out infection. So I went to another naturopath to get ozone shots, but he didn't do it in the mouth. So I had to go to a dentist who did it in intraorally, which led me to another dentist who was doing myofunctional therapy at the time. And I was reading James Nestor's book, Breath, which was all about opening up the airways to calm your nervous system down. So I ended up elf device in my mouth, but she wanted the elf device paired with a lot of craniosacral therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, the best way to get a bunch of craniosacral therapy is to actually take the course. And the lady who had introduced me to it, she had been taking the course while she was working on me, and she talked about how fun it was. So then that kind of encouraged me to take the course. Yeah.
Okay. So is that
and
what you're trying to do for work now?
I don't know.
Still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I love it. I love it as a modality. But you know where you go through things and you're like, was I just meant to be a student and do it for my own healing, or was I meant to do that? Came up in a lot of my own healing is, does everything have to be done for a reason? Can something just be done for yourself, for the good of yourself? Can I just do this craniosacral course solely for myself, not for any other reason, just to explore, play, heal, laugh, cry, be angry? Yeah, and I'm still kind of in that zone with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads me into where I was going to go next is, how are you now? I mean, obviously you said Lyme disease is something you'll probably be dealing with for forever, just figuring out how to manage it the best way possible. So how are you emotionally and mentally at this point in time, and how is it still affecting your everyday life? And go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, my subconscious kind of gave me that 5 year sort of message, I guess. So I'm in year 4. Throughout the whole process with my one naturopath in Kelowna, I've been doing low dose immunotherapy.
Okay.
It's been informing a lot of the undercurrents of my healing, a lot of the intuitive stuff. So I've done immunotherapy for food, for Lyme, for herpes virus because I had mono when I was a kid, for environmental like toxins, for heavy metals, and a bunch of clearing. And the one I did most recently was for adrenals and energy sort of support. So that's what is kind of the phase I'm in right now, is how to get my energy back. What work is my work? What work is other work? What work should I be doing on this planet? The energy I invest in work, how can I build? Yeah, I think it's a lot now. It's coming back to that, increasing the health of my my wealth again.
Sure.
um, and with that, I've taken some of my healing into my own hands. So the bee venom is awesome because I ordered it from Hungary. I'm set up with it now. I can inject myself 3 times a week. I don't have to go drive somewhere to an appointment. It's something I can do on my own. I'm going to be student assisting in Vernon for a craniosacral course. So again, that's going to be for free. I'm going to be helping out in the class. And then what else have I?
So physically, does it
Physically,
feel pretty managed at this point?
yeah, I do get more tired, or my joints get more sore in the past, or like my nervous system can get tense more quickly, but I know how to resource myself better and to not push myself as much. And I'm also heavily guided. So I had this the other day. I went rollerblading, and this is my typical old self. Is I was like, okay, I want to go for an hour. But then my typical old self is like, no, I want to make it all the way to Lake Country. It looks beautiful over there. But I did reach a point in the thing where my mind started to be like, you should turn around, you should turn around. And I was overriding it. And then eventually I hit this weird part where the path had to cross a road and then started to go under an overpass. And I was like, no, I'll still go. I'll still go. Eventually, this street cleaner thing came up and created this wall of dust. And I was like, either I dune this shit. So I don't know if you've seen
Oh, I love Dune. I'm a huge Dune nerd.
like that wall. So I was like, either I dune this shit and go through this dusty wall with my rollerblades, or I listen that this is where I'm supposed to turn around and don't push your body as far as you should. And so yeah, I turned around and it ended up being a really nice rollerblade. But in the past, I would have just gone full tune.
Just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, so I've learned to listen a bit more. If my mind's screaming at me, you're tired, you need to rest, I'll rest. If it tells me you need to eat, I'll eat. And yeah, I just kind of, if I need to stretch, I'll stretch. And yeah, so I'm definitely, my body's starting to produce happy chemicals again, the hormonal juices that make one actually feel happy from the inside out, right?
So when did you start noticing those feelings coming back?
That was, yeah, sort of midway through my craniosacral course. So maybe last year.
Okay. So
Yeah,
before that, you really struggled then, probably emotionally prior to that.
really hard to connect with things, really hard to feel joy, even if it was something in the past that I really loved. It was just really hard to, yeah, to find the same amount of joy in them. But lately, yeah, I could feel, recently there was one, I was doing something and I could feel an expansion in my backspace and my kidneys really opened up. And then I could feel a rush of this excited adrenaline and this exhilaration. And it was really cool. And it came from the inside out. And I just felt so happy and stoked. And I was like, whoa, I haven't felt this way in a long time. And it took me by surprise almost. And it was so beautiful because it wasn't anything from externally that was true. Something had been released deep inside me. It was just like, oh, I feel great.
That's so cool.
And that's kind of what the biodynamic craniosacral does a bit. It teaches you how to not only externally resource, but deeply, deeply internally resource and bring the healing from the inside out.
I love that. Yeah, because that's really what it is, right? We do have to heal ourselves. It's not just physically we have to heal ourselves. And a lot of the times, in your case with Lyme disease, that may not be a possibility for you to heal completely physically from, but emotionally and spiritually and energetically and all of that, you can heal from it and you will probably be able to manage it even better.
Yeah, actually, one of the most powerful things I did with Lyme was I remember being on a walk after Reiki, one of my Reiki classes, and I literally accepted Lyme into my heart. I literally gave it of because the whole time Lyme felt like it was waging World War II inside my body, right? And just creating havoc. And I was like, okay, Lyme, I don't want to fight anymore. Here's this very fertile land in my heart. I'm granting it to you. You can take up residence in it and you can come and go as you please. And please accept this gift of land inside my heart space. And even doing something like that had powerful shifts in terms of my healing and how I felt physically in my body. And it was really like a laying down of arms. And after that point, Lyme almost became an ally inside my body. And I could almost feel the ancient wisdom that these bugs sort of had because they've been on this planet way longer than I have. And yeah, that was really trippy for me of that flipping of the thinking of,
And
yeah.
acceptance. So you finally got to a point where you could just accept that, I guess is your reality. And and then accepting it. That's huge. That's a huge healing. But I think everybody has to get to that part at different points in their journey, right? That's not an easy thing to come to by any means.
Oh yeah, that took time for sure.
Yeah.
That definitely took time because yeah, there were in the beginning you will feel a lot of resentment and anger and hate towards yourself and the disease and stuff. And then to get to that, yeah, place of acceptance and deep peace and love. Once you sort of create that friendship with what you've been struggling with, it becomes really empowering. You almost start working together, in a strange way. That was yeah, that was a very big shift. I remember
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad that you were able to get to that point.
We always say I don't, people like to say, oh, it's cliche, but I don't think it should ever be underestimated how much love can do.
Mm-hmm.
And love instead of an acceptance and peace and gratitude and to anything you might be struggling with. I've had a lot of food issues in my life, and throughout this journey, the amount of times I had to just really sit with my food and smell it and feel it and taste it and slow things down and focus on chewing it and really give gratitude to food really helped, repair a lot of harmful behaviors I would have with food of or thought patterns and stuff.
That's really interesting. I feel like that should be another episode. We should have you back. I feel like I could just keep talking to you all day, but I guess a couple more questions. What advice would you give to someone who's currently struggling with the symptoms or diagnosis of Lyme disease?
Okay, yeah, so I would have one of the biggest ones that helped me was, yeah, just really check in with your system, check in with yourself. Each day you wake up, just, hey body, what one thing can help you out today or help make things a bit easier? Hey mind, what are you feeling, or soul, or body, mind, and soul? What is
I mean,
one
really, this could go for anybody, right? Going through anything.
wake up and check in with yourself?
I love that.
I also have, I think with Lyme, the intuitive process, because a lot of people maybe with Lyme will try to control the healing process a bit. And Buddhist story, which I love to repeat because I heard it, was so you have this bowl and there's a bunch of frogs, and you want to get all the frogs neatly in the bowl. right? And you just want to, have a bowl full of frogs. And you go about the task and you're trying to get the frogs in the bowl. And then you realize that the only way you can get all these frogs neatly in this bowl is to kill all the frogs.
Oh no.
But where is the joy in that? Where is the joy in a bowl of a whole bunch of dead frogs? So
Legit question.
life and healing, you just have to be content with getting, maybe you'll get some of the frogs in, maybe you'll get most of the frogs in, but they will be bouncing and hopping. And you just got to be okay that some frogs may just get away. You know what I mean? So yeah, what I take from that story is just be okay with your healing journey not being perfect. Yeah, seek more. It will get messy at times, but the messy parts will bring you more joy than trying to get all the frogs dead in the bowl, right?
That's great. Great analogy.
Just let it be a bit more intuitive. If you're feeling that, check in with yourself. Let the frogs bounce free, and
I love that. Oh, this has been such a great conversation. I love this. And I feel like I want to have you back I feel like we should do a deep dive into that craniosacral stuff more so for just helping others know alternative routes of healing and stuff like that and how it can help you. And so let's do that again on a later episode. We'll have to do this again. But yeah, do you have any parting thoughts?
No, I'm truly grateful to you for setting up this podcast for stories, and I feel really honored to be a part of it, and really, thank you for creating this platform.
Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable, because I know this stuff isn't easy to talk about and it's not easy to put out there, and it's not, and there are a lot of people that don't open up about this stuff, right? And so I think the more people open up about a lot of different topics, the more or the less taboo they're going to be, or and we can all have a little bit more compassion and understanding and empathy for each other, knowing that no one's life is perfect, right?
Oh, and far from it, right?
Yeah. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you for being vulnerable. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the story shared, please consider following us on your preferred podcast platform. Your ratings and reviews make a huge difference. They help us reach more listeners and continue bringing you engaging, insightful content. I appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Until next time, keep listening, growing, and sharing. Thank you so much.